Hello YouTube, my name is Scott and welcome to another episode of Opinions No One Cares About, a video series that I'll probably look back at in a few years and think, why? Tonight, or today, or whenever you're watching this, I want to talk about Batman, which you may have guessed from the hoodie or the hat. But Batman himself is kind of a big subject to work with, so I'm going to focus on a particular villain. As we all know, there are many to choose from in his legendary rogues gallery. You have the more popular, well-known ones like the Joker, the Riddler, Penguin, Catwoman, Two-Face, Poison Ivy, and Mr. Freeze, and then the slightly lesser ones like the Scarecrow, Killer Croc, Mad Hatter, Solomon Grundy, Harley Quinn. Okay, maybe you could bump her up a little bit more now. I mean, she did just get what was almost a standalone movie after almost standing alone in a movie. We know you tried. Yeah, and so did you. We know. However, if you know your Batman villains, you know I'm missing one in particular. And that man is Bane. No, not you. Bane literally broke Batman. Let's show him a little more respect. That's better. Anyway, let me sum up as best I can. Bane made his comic debut in Batman, Vengeance of Bane #1. Appropriate, no? His father was a failed revolutionary on the fictional island of Santa Prisca who managed to escape justice, and the corrupt government responded by forcing Bane to serve his father's sentence. He was born in prison and knew no other home as a child. An incident between two other inmates when he was a child caused him to fall from a 2-story walkway and go into a 31-day coma, where he apparently met a future version of himself. This version of himself told him that he could be the living embodiment of human superiority if he could conquer his fear. Now, after Bane was revived from this coma, he killed the man who caused his fall, which caused him to be locked in solitary confinement for more than 10 years. Upon his release, he did everything he could to become this future version of himself, and he also met a fellow inmate called Bird, who was from Gotham City. And that is what set Bane on his path. See, Bane's biggest fear was a terrifying bat-like creature that had haunted his dreams since childhood. Bird told him that Gotham City was essentially ruled by Batman, because all the crime bosses were afraid of him. Bane believed that destroying Batman, whom he saw as the living personification of his nightmares, would mean that he had truly conquered his fear and recognized his awesome potential. He believed that fate had put him on a collision course with Batman. Is it true? Maybe. It might help to explain the next series of events. The prison administrators chose Bane to be a test subject for an experimental drug called Venom. Imagine that in all caps for dramatic effect. Venom had killed every other subject it was tested on, but when they gave it to Bane, he not only survived, but grew stronger. And after faking his death, he returned to the prison and busted out his most trusted accomplices. The gang headed to Gotham, where they outfitted Bane with the equipment he would need to inject himself with venom every 12 hours, as he now needed to do. This is why the classic Bane character design has a full mask over his head and tubes that lead into his brain, and not some weird face mask thing. Like that. When Bane finally gets to Gotham City, Batman isn't doing too good. He's just failed to capture Black Mask, who was trying to put Wayne Enterprises out of business. And he also has to deal with the arrival of Azrael, aka Jean-Paul Vallée, a young graduate student who has apparently been subconsciously trained since birth to become an assassin for an ancient religious order, because this is a comic book, and of course he has. It's also suggested that he may be mourning the death of Superman, which had happened recently in comics. You see him a few times with a black armband around his arm with a Superman logo on it. In a way, this is kind of like Batman's midlife crisis, and he starts pushing himself harder to prove that he can still do it. He goes without sleep for long periods of time. He tries to see a therapist and tells her that he meditates and is trying to get help, but soon he starts canceling appointments with her. He gets Robin, the Tim Drake model, to train Azrael in the hopes of making him a hero instead of an assassin. But all of this is making him weaker, and Bane is watching. At one point, Batman is so weak he literally can't get out of bed, and when Killer Croc shows up, Robin talks Azrael into donning the Batsuit, and Bane shows up to attempt to take him on, but he realizes somehow that that's not Batman. So what does Bane do? The same thing any of us would do, obviously. When the Riddler gets into the fray, he injects him with a variation of venom and leaves him to deal with Batman, only, super strong and not feeling any pain. And Batman, in his weakened state, barely makes it work. Just barely. So Bane decides he's got to kick things up a notch. So Bane's accomplices help him to steal some munitions and launch an assault on Arkham Asylum that sets all the inmates free. And Batman goes on a tear just to capture them all and bring them back to justice. And every time it's driving him further and further to the edge. It takes about 3 months to do. It damn near culminates in a joint attack by the Joker and Scarecrow, who kidnap the mayor and get him to send the police on wild goose chases. When Batman catches up to them, a dose of Scarecrow's toxic gas forces him to relive the murder of Jason Todd, aka Dead Robin, which drags him about as low as he could possibly be, and then Bane's accomplices set themselves on him. He just barely manages to get away from them, and returns to Wayne Manor, broken down to nearly nothing, only to find Bane waiting for him. Because, of course, Bane has figured out his secret identity. A battle ensues, if you can even call it that, because Batman barely manages to land a punch, and none of them have any effect, before Bane straight up picks Batman up over his head and breaks his back over his knee, paralyzing him. And that's the problem I have, folks. Bane is a great villain. He's super smart, he's super strong, and he believes fate has led him to confronting Batman and destroying him. And when he sees that his greatest enemy is weak, his plan is to weaken him further. That would be fine if he was, anybody else. But for the living embodiment of human superiority, forgive me, but it looks like cowardice. He doesn't want to fight with a fresh, rested enemy that he should have no problem destroying anyway, thanks to the venom coursing through his veins. He wants an easy fight, which is barely a fight at all. This would be the high school equivalent of you claiming you could kick the school bully's ass before sneaking laxatives into his lunch and jumping him just as he leaves the bathroom. And I mean, this is Batman we're talking about. Oh, right. Bane might have pushed him to his lowest point, but Batman's lowest point is like a regular person's dead. If a 90-year-old grandmother had attacked him as he walked out of the Batcave that night, she probably could have broken his back too. And he claims victory afterward. Bane, who barely had to lift a finger himself to defeat Batman, takes over as the king of crime in Gotham. Circling back to my high school analogy, that would be like the bully getting jumped by a group of kids, and then you claiming you kicked his ass by coming up afterwards and pushing him down a flight of stairs. Sorry, that analogy got a little violent. It just doesn't make sense to me. Bane considers himself the epitome of mental and physical perfection. He can control his own bodily functions to the point where he faked his death to escape prison. He figured out Bruce Wayne was Batman just by looking at him. Taking out Batman at his best shouldn't be a problem with him, even when he's hopped up on Venom. But instead, he shows his ability to confront Batman by never directly confronting him until the end. He essentially took over Gotham on a technicality. I mean, what was his mindset? Batman rules Gotham. I want Gotham. So I shall destroy him by letting everyone else get him first. Okay, here's the deal. Subscribe to my channel and I promise I will never try to imitate Bane again. I said it earlier, I'll say it again, Bane is a coward. A coward on steroids, because that's exactly what Venom is. And as to what I said earlier about respect, no, let's reduce that a little bit. Whoa, not quite that far, but not quite that high either. Oh, there we go, that's good. And we'll overlook the fact that this particular one was played by a white guy. Maybe save that for a future video. Okay, another episode in. Good job. Good job, me. Yeah. Good job, me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, please click like, share it around with your friends if you think they might like it. Absolutely comment on it. Very few people do comment, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you liked it enough, subscribe for more. Until next time, my name's Scott, and this has been Opinions No One Cares About. Everybody has opinions, and this one was mine.